Another day of being a bad guy. Nothing bad's gonna happen.
Today on Grantham, we're going to be talking about a very interesting sniper rifle, and that is the Seekins SP10M. If you're not familiar with the Seekins SP10M, well, it's used by some of the spookiest of the spooky of snipers and designated marksmen out there, and it is an incredible rifle. Now, we've talked a lot about the SP10M. We've shown the SP10M a lot, but you know what we haven't done? A dedicated autistic review. So today on Grantham, I hope you'll join us as we talk about SOCOM's newest sniper rifle, the Seekins SP10M. Now, before we get started, we of course have to thank the biggest sponsor of the channel, and that is of course Primary Arms. It doesn't matter what you're looking for, they've got it. And beyond that, they're just cool. And they make a really cool pistol optic, the HTX-1, which is among me and John's favorite, and so yours too, right?
That thing's pretty sick.
You know what, guys? Today is Laffy Taffy Sunday for them. When you reply with Grantham sent me for Laffy Taffy, they will be mad at me, but I feel like it's worth it. So go in, harass Primary Arms, and of course, you're looking to be more American. Nothing's more than American than a lever-action rifle. Henry Repeating Arms is a proud sponsor of this channel, and they stuck with us because, you know, I mean, we push the limits. You know, we've done MOX executions, and, you know, the only transition we like is the drill ones, and it goes hard, but you know what? They're with us, and they're more American than anything. Go check them out, because there's nothing like the heritage of a lever-action rifle, and beyond that, go check out henrythumb.com. Can't say much about it right here, but it's worth it. Finally, guys, if you're looking to get better at shooting, we recommend dry fire. Mantis will turn your weapon into a dry fire machine, and of course, all ammunition is provided for by AAC, which, as you can see, performs pretty dang good. So with all that being said, let's get into it, because 6.5 is actually pretty expensive. Forget ammo. It's the kind of thing that sucks. You can't really blast it, but you don't want to blast it, you know? So the first thing that we're going to do with the Seekins SP10M is we're going to be accuracy testing it. Because for any type of SPR, DMR, sniper rifle, well, quite frankly, you want it to be really damn accurate. Now, with our SP10Ms, this is not our first time testing them. We've tested them in plenty of other videos, but we want to show you right here how both the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 308 versions do. We do have the contract suppressors on here, which are the KGM cans, and this one is for 6.5, that one is for 30 cal. We're going to go ahead and we're going to print using 140 grain SMK Serial Match Kings, which are 6.5 Creedmoor SP10M likes, and we'll be using 168 grain Serial Match Kings for the 308. So without further ado, we're going to do it. At the same time, we're going to be tracking our standard deviation for our 5-shot group to make sure the ammo is performing good, because obviously if that's any messed up, that could affect the grouping. It'll give us an indication of 1, how the ammo is doing, and 2, how the gun is doing. So without further ado, let's get into it. Very pleasant gun to shoot, very low recoil, and I'm wearing a boonie, which adds +5 to accuracy. Looks pretty dang tight. We'll go ahead and put that down. We fired 1 round to start, and then we printed our 5-round group. Looks pretty good. Barrel is a little bit warm to start off with, but that is a-okay. Go ahead and we'll set up here with our 308. She is good to go. Okay, now, as far as how our gun performed there, standard deviation was 7. Cool, that's great. In reality, I think it's about closer to 12 once you fired, you know, couple, you know, about 50 or so rounds. It's pretty typical of us. So we're gonna reset, and then we'll set it for our 308. We just wanna make sure we're precise with our chronographing. 168 grains, cool. Awesome. Okay, let's go check those groupings. Let's see here for our 308 right here. 2659, standard deviation of 9. Usually it's about between 9 to 12 for the 308, so that matches up pretty well. Okay, let's go see how it did. We got the 6.5, our 5 round, and the 308 5 round. You can also use errant rounds right here. These were the first initial shots I took, then I adjusted. I wanted to get it pretty much on the bullseye for you guys. Adjustment was a little off for the 6.5, pretty much dead on for the 308. So let's go ahead and let's see what the size of our actual grouping was, and small. Okay, so for our 5-shot group on our 6.5, you can see we had 2 right here, guy right here, and then we had 2 through the same hole if you want to get a close-up of that, Sawyer. And so measuring that out, we have about 0.722 MOA, which is about pretty typical for the SP10M. It will do down to 0.5 with ammo that it really loves, and that's what we want to see. Now with our 308, we had 0.79, which is again about on par. We've gotten down to about 0.4 with really good ammo. I'm really dialed in. But as far as showing the accuracy, you can see that this is a psychotically accurate gun. I think we've gotten pretty used to guns just having such superb accuracy, but like on a SCAR 20, which is considered a very accurate weapon, you know, 0.9, 0.8 is insane. So getting on to the 0.7 down to 0.5 on a gas gun is just psychotic, not to mention how light the recoil is and how easy it is to follow up with shots and get multiple impacts on a target while the round is still in flight. It's insane. So next up, we'll be doing some drills and we'll be showing you what that looks like. So obviously, if we're talking about a DMR, if we're talking about a sniper rifle, the first thing that we want to do is push it to distance. So right here, we have our SP10M at 1,000 yards, firing 140 grain Sierra Match King in 6.5. There are other calibers that are used at times, but they're pretty dang close. So going 6.5, 308 is awesome, but John, what is the issue with 308 past about 900?
Right then it hits transonic, and it's kind of a guessing game of where the bullet's going to go next.
Oh, John, you're not a fan of trans?
No.
So 6.5 is interesting. 30, you know, you have less recoil and it just flies better. So it's not specifically more powerful than 308, but man, does it fly good. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take some shots here at 1,000. So I've got myself dialed, do about a mil, hold to the left here. John, young glass?
Young glass. Impact. Impact. Impact.
Well, that was pretty scary fast right there.
Yeah.
You can see how little recoil the gun has and how quickly it is to follow up with a shot. It really is pretty incredible how softly gassed the gun is. And if you're worried about the gun not being gassed hard enough, it's starting to choke up, well, it's very easy to change the gas setting. You simply crank the lever over, pick up your gas, and have it buck a little bit harder, but push through any type of carbon. Right here, we got a recce rig. And did you know that the recce rig, John, actually holds 308 mags?
That's crazy.
I know, dude, it's so cool. I wish like a really cool, really base company made it like
Only.
Like my company.
If only they did.
So on the SP10M right here, we do have a heavier profile barrel. The reason for that is it's a combat gun. This is 100% a combat rifle. This isn't a toy or anything like that. This is meant for hard use. Because the barrel is of a heavier profile, what happens is it can absorb a lot of that heat and radiate it without it beginning to affect accuracy as quickly as a lighter weight barrel. I know there's some contention about this issue, but the fact of the matter is as your barrel heats up, you can get a few problems. So as much as we can resist that, we're going to, and that's what one of the many reasons why the SP10M is such a good design. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna get John on here. He's gonna be taking some shots, and then after that, we'll walk out to 1200. So right now the wind's picked up. We're at about 17, 18 gusting right now. And now it's John's turn. 6.5 isn't terribly affected by wind, but it will be by this. I would hold 2.5. Impact. Low right, barely, by about 1/4 of a target off. Impact. just under. We're shooting unsupported. I mean, we're shooting off bipod, but these are difficult shots. John made them very easily, so good shooting, buddy. Wind is never fun because you got to do not guesswork. In the case we don't have a Kestrel out measuring the wind speed, it is a little bit of guesswork. Just comes from shooting a bunch. So did excellent. This gun is absolutely deadly. Seekin's precision, more like Seekin to put you in that forever box.
I really do like this gun. It's a lot better than the like the SR25s and M110s I used in the military. So
How is it compared to the Scar 20S?
So I really like the Scar 20 personally. This is, I'd say the recoil impulse is definitely smoother. I mean, it's a DI gun.
Yeah.
But Scar 20 is phenomenal. I'd say this probably beats it.
It does. I think it does. I love the Scar 20S. Before we head on, one thing we'll talk about is a lot of people want to know what's on our wristband right here. So it's basic call signs, basic battle maneuvers that we have, and beyond that, from Walter Sobchak and Onward Research, we do have cards that you can use to measure off your MRAD through your reticle to give you distance. That's very nice. These are typical things that you'd see. We also have military versions, so like people, stop signs, doorways. This is helpful stuff where if you don't want to use a rangefinder to give yourself away at night or what have you, you can easily use your scope in order to measure. This is a lost art, so this is good to know. You can also do it with math. It's just kind of quick to have it on you. And you can see we also have our dope cards that give us our drops on the back of the scope. This is again an Onward Research and Sobchak Security. And then we also have the old school method of just taping it.
Just one thing to avoid, and I saw people make this mistake in sniper school as well, is if you want to wrap up your stock or put this right here, you can have something at the 12 o'clock position. Just make sure it's very thin, because if you have something super thick, then your charging handle is just going to dig into it over time, and then you might bring pieces of tape into the gun, but it's just going to completely destroy it. But if it's like super thin, one layer of tape, then it's probably fine. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
It's one of those things where it's a self-correcting mistake. Yeah, you do it once, maybe you die. Who knows? So for the length of the barrel on the SP10M, we're at the kind of outer limits of the 6.5. We're at 1200, 1250 at our elevations, about where we go transonic, where it becomes a little bit unpredictable. So this is the last long range shot we'll do, and sorry if you want to pan towards the targets just to see how far they are. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna get on the gun, and we're dialed already, and the wind's kind of whipping down there, but we'll see how we do. Hold that one. Nice. Whew. Once I kind of got those wind holds down, wasn't too bad. There's a lot of flight time in 6.5. There's a lot more time for that wind to catch it. Shooting at kind of the outer ranges of what your caliber is meant to do. You can make shots at the kind of edge of the distance, but it becomes increasingly difficult. This is 100% a point where I'd step up in calibers from 6.5 to something a little bit more energetic, whether it be Norma Magnum or Lapua or something like that. It's a very reliable, it's a very accurate, it's a very deadly system. So let's go show you at some other distances that are pretty common for a DMR and for a sniper, and show you how quick it is, how good the follow-up shots are, and more about it. All right, so we're right here at about 650. Now, when you think DMR and you think sniper rifle, you probably think extreme distance, but that's not always the case. John?
Yeah, it's what's cool about these things. The Army likes to call them a SAS, a semi-auto sniper system, and especially in like special operations direct action raids, a lot of the gas guns that you see very similar to this or this exact model, they're not taking shots super far away. The first time I saw someone get put down with a SAS was, I think they were maybe 50, 60 meters away from me, and I was right next to the sniper. But it's extreme precision, and you can stretch it out if you need to, just like we were showing up there. But yeah, a lot of the times it's just closer in, but extreme precision.
There you have it. So when you think about these rifles shooting out to about 500, there's a lot less drop, a lot less wind that's affecting it. So it's a very effective system for short distance, even though you might not think of it as something that's good for that.
All right, yeah, so 650, I'm using the 308 one right now. These are 168 grains. One thing I've noticed is the 175 for 308, 175 grain, it just didn't do all that well. I've noticed if you back it off a little bit to the 168 grains, that's always gotten me better performance. So yeah, 650 right here. I'm gonna give it a 5.5 hold, and the wind's kind of doing its own thing. I'll give it 2 mils to the left. Just off right. Impact. Yeah, so at this distance, it's definitely going to be a little tricky with the wind. Of course, as you push it out, then it's going to get worse and worse. To me, a 308 semi-auto is usually like a 700 and in gun, which I know people can push it further than that, but a reliable first or second shot impacts. I would say for 308, it's definitely 700 and in.
I would definitely agree with that. The nice thing about 308 is, of course, that it's easier to get your hands on. So if we're talking like civilian application, although 6.5 Creedmoor is very, very popular, there is so much 308 in the world. And the Seekins SP10M, regardless of how bad the ammo is, tends to do pretty good. So that is one reason you might choose to use 308 as opposed to 6.5 Creedmoor. Doing a little bit of shooting here at 650. Which is still a good distance. So my hold's about 4.9, about 1 mil dot left. All right, not too bad. John, you want to go ahead and take shots at 308? Impact. 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 You want to do it at the same time, John?
Let's try it.
On 1, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2. Ready?
Hold on.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 3, 2. 3, 2. So the point that we wanted to show you here, guys, is that although DMRs, you think of them as a closer gun, they are very effective close up. They're especially very effective within urban operations. So should the precision, the ability to take those shots that aren't specifically able to be done by an AR-15, not because the round can't reach it, but simply because there are limitations to accuracy to some of the standard military or standard AR-15s that you have compared to the, very consistent half to 3/4 MOA that you get out of a Seekins SP10M. So there's always a purpose for them, even if you're at closer distances. All right, we're at 350 right here, well within like an urban distance or just hill to hill. You're going to see how effective and how precise and how easy it is to do follow-up shots with the 6.5. So we'll do 3 quick shots right here. Nice. I missed one. We'll do a few more. That is super fun. John?
Only got 2 rounds left.
Send it. We're back. You know what? 308 hits way harder. It hits so hard. Man, you can see how effective the weapon would be at close range. You need to make a precise shot. Somebody's behind a rock. They're barely peeking out, and you need somebody to take that shot. This is something that this system is very capable of. So we've done a good amount of shooting at this point. Let's go ahead. Let's wrap it up. Let's get into the basement, and let's break it down artistically. So we've done a ton of shooting. Now we're going to do a ton of talking because the SP10M from Seekins is a very interesting, very compelling system for a whole variety of reasons. In fact, it's going to be hard to go over everything in this particular video, not because there's any hesitation on my part to do it, but simply because there was so much engineering that went into this. And the primary kind of goal of Grantham is not to specifically go over engineering, because that's not my specialty, but rather to talk about it from a shooting perspective. But in certain cases like today, it's going to be important to talk about the engineering, because you might look at this and say to yourself, well, this is clearly an AR-10. It's pretty far from an AR-10 because of all the different upgrades, all the different design choices that they made, that it's not really compatible with an AR-10. This doesn't specifically make it a completely different platform, but rather to say that this is quite the evolution of the design. And you're going to see why it was selected by so many different Tier 1 and Tier 2 Special Operations units. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Now, to start off with, the Seekins SP10M is a semi-automatic, gas-driven. It's simply a DI system. It is fed from a 20-round box magazine typically, although it can use the 25-rounders. It's just you have to understand that when you get bigger than 20 rounds on larger calibers like 308, 65, 260, those magazines quickly get very ginormous. So most people tend to run a 20, which is what I'm running on here. On this particular rifle, I'm running the Knights Armament magazines, although the Magpuls work probably better in many ways. So let's go ahead and let's start tip to butt right here. Seekins Precision SP10M. What is the difference between the Seekins SP10 and the SP10M? Well, the 10M is made for military. The big changes being that that every part that is going into an M is specifically gauged, inspected, and re-inspected after Cerakoting and coating to ensure that they're making, as accurate, as tight as a rifle as possible. But for all intents and purposes, both the SP10 and the 10M are the same weapon. There's just a few more kind of guarantees and break-in procedures that are done with the M that aren't done on the SP10. So we're going to start the muzzle. Now with the muzzle, they kind of expect you to put on whatever you want. So it's your typical thread pitch. We use AccuWashers and ours, and we do have a KGM can on there. Now the reason we use a KGM can is because this is the can that is typically used with these contract SP10Ms. We do have the 6.5 can right here. And Sawyer, if you could hand me the 308 version right down there. Thank you. And on the 308 version that we have right here, we do have the KGM 30 cal can. Those are both contract cans. The only difference in the one SP10M that we do not have that is fielded by the military is both the 6mm Creedmoor as well as the 260. Now, there are a lot of questions about why 260 versus 6.5. Honestly, it came down to how much ammunition they had of 260, why it was selected. There are definitely some arguments for 260 outclassing 6.5 in many ways, but they're quite close in performance. And being a civilian where you're not, have a huge amount of 260, I would typically recommend sticking with 6.5, which is still used by Tier 1 and Tier 2 units. Now, these cans perform very excellently, and you can redirect how you want the gases by screwing in inserts. It is an exceptional can, but even better, this can was specifically made for accuracy and for precision rifles. And in every way, it is probably one of the better cans you can have on here. There are a lot of great cans for precision. It's just, we're going along with what the military used, and we've been very happy with the results. Now, the barrels are a 416R stainless steel. The rifles as a whole are 11 pounds unloaded. This isn't an excessive amount of weight for a DMR type rifle or for a sniper rifle, and I've been very happy with what we've seen. Now, before we go any further, I do want to note that these rifles were sent to us. We've had these for a couple years at this point, and we have done a ton of rounds on them. In addition to that, we've also talked to the engineers over at Seekins, and I guess you could say in that way we're connected. Now, that being said, there's no exchange of money or anything like that. All ammunition is provided for by AAC, but we always want to be sure to explain to you guys what our relationship is, and we did receive these rifles, which is very typical of the arrangements that we have on this channel. Now, with the barrels, they are a fairly heavy profile. This helps to withstand a lot of the wear patterns that you see. It helps withstand heat as the heat builds up in the rifle. And there's a couple other components that they did to help manage the heat and ensure that accuracy stayed fairly consistent no matter how hot the rifle got. Now, in the case of the SP10, these rifles don't ship unless they're printing below 0.7, but more typically they're printing anywhere from 0.5 to 0.6 minutes, which is an incredibly precise rifle, especially for a semi-automatic. There's a lot that goes into a good barrel, and what's great about Seekins is almost all their parts, well, the major components are manufactured in-house, which allows them to control a lot of the variables that are uncontrollable from many other manufacturers. Now, there is a reason that it was selected by very soft units compared to other rifles that you're seeing. And we should note that there are other rifles out there that are currently used by Tier 1 and Tier units in the same role, namely the LMT, Knights Armament, as well as some other smaller companies. But the Seekins has been well respected and has earned its reputation as just a phenomenal shooter. So let's go on to the details of the weapon and what makes this thing so exceptional and how it outclasses other designs. Because you might look at this and say, okay, I understand that it's a very accurate rifle, but is it truly $3,000 when I can buy, a PSA M110 Super SAS or anything like that for a lot less? Like, what does the Seekins do that this doesn't? And let's get into that, because Like I said, there are many things that lead to it being a phenomenally accurate and superb system. Now, when we look at the handguard, typically there's some problems with your long-range designs that are of the AR pattern. And that problem is that the handguard kind of ends up holding onto the barrel nut. It ends up holding onto the upper and onto the barrel. So what that means is that when I'm in a shooting position and I'm cranking this down on a barricade, or I'm pushing into the bipod, aka loading into the bipod, or doing something that can exert some force on the handguard, as you guys know, handguards flex. That flexion can then transfer into the barrel nut and can shift the impact of the rifle as a whole, which is not something that you want in a high stakes environment where you want to make sure that you're putting somebody into the ground permanently. So how Seekins has approached that issue is the barrel nut handguard system is actually connected into the upper. Because that barrel nut is actually within the upper receiver itself and is not connected to the handguard, you have a truly free float system. But what's more important, that means that whatever loading you're putting on the handguard doesn't transfer to the barrel. So despite being in weird positions or putting weird forces on the handguard, you aren't going to see that point of impact shift that you'd see with other systems such as the M110. Not to say that this makes these a bad weapon, but merely to say that this is a huge deal in the precision world and is one of the many reasons why this rifle won over other designs. To me, it's a really incredible design that they did that solves a lot of problems with this system. Now, the cool thing about the handguard, obviously I know we have a lot of scrim on these and stuff, but we like to have a rifle setup for you guys, is a very triangular design with a wide flat section at the bottom. This allows for mounting of Arca rail, Picatinny, whatever you can mount. And in addition to that, when you're getting on different types of barricades, different types of cover, when you're shooting from cover, it's very easy to get this thing flat and in place where you want it, which is why I'm a huge fan of the handguard. Now, another thing that we want to note is we do have a low POI shift, but there's something else that we have to talk about, and that's shootability. So how does a weapon recoil? When we have a semi-automatic system, we want something that we can do quick follow-up shots with that have very little recoil. The better recoil management is on one of these rifles, the better my ability to have very little scope jump, which means I can track the bullet in flight, the impact on the target, or the miss on the target, then quickly reassess and take another shot. The SV10 is a like incredibly soft shooting platform compared to other rifles in its category, whether it be the M110, the PSA M110, whether it be the M14 or the G28 or the 417. It's a very soft system, and they did some very specific things to make that happen. First things first, we do have a very easily adjustable gas system. Simply a lever right here that you crank over from minus to plus. Plus means more gas. So you can set this precisely to have a very gentle recoil impulse. And in addition to that, if we go back to the bolt itself, the bolt is actually oversized compared to what you see from most AR-10 bolts. And the reason for this is there's several schools of thought on how you control recoil on a gun. In the case of the Seekins, they have a very heavy bolt. Well, not very heavy. It's like 17 to 18 ounces. And then they have a flat recoil spring. Now, the reason they want the flat recoil spring inside the action is that the flat recoil spring, one, can compress down further, so you have more of that movement of the bolt carrier to slow it down. But in addition to that, you have more coils that are able to compact. Because of this, you have a long travel time, and when you fire the Seekins, you can really feel that slow cycling. It doesn't cycle very fast, and this is actually a benefit. When you fire, you can really feel the chink as it cycles back and forth. It's very pleasant. It's a very soft push into your shoulder. And typically, even out to 1,100, 1,000, because the recoil is so soft, I'm able to watch my vapor trail on a lot of my rounds after I fired the shot. This is a huge deal on a semi-automatic rifle. So I understand that it's not going to be as smooth as like a bolt action where people have all these tuned parts and brakes where when they shoot, truly the gun doesn't move. But this is getting pretty dang close on the SP10M. Now, we've pointed out a lot of the good things they've done to manage the recoil, and so that brings us down to a system that is very easy to shoot. And this is another reason why it won it out over other systems of its type, is that not only is there very little POI shift, but in addition to that, the weapon is very soft shooting. So moving back to there, we have upper and lower receivers, and it is a fully ambidextrous design. So on this guy right here, we have our bolt release on our right-hand side, magazine release, and then on the left-hand side, we have bolt release, bolt catch, magazine release. And then you can see, like other good long-range designs, we do have an ambidextrous fire selector. so that when I'm same side firing for that long range precision, I'm still able to actuate that safety. Now, when it comes to triggers, we do have a Trigger Tech AR trigger. It is a 3-pound trigger pull, single stage. I typically do like a 2-stage trigger, but I've really come to love this, and this was designed by people who've done a lot more than me. So feeling for that, we have no movement. We have a 3-pound pull off the reset, very short, just no effort. And that's what you want from a precision rifle. You don't want to have to be worrying about your trigger pull. In many ways, I would almost want a little bit more weight, like closer to 4 pounds. But that's really me nitpicking. The 3 has been phenomenal. And in addition to that, with this rifle, I'm consistently printing between between 0.5 and 0.7 minutes, which is psychotically small. Going back to there at the stock, there are some different versions that have different stocks. Some of them have the Magpul PRS Gen 3. I really like this design that they have right here. Length of pull is adjustable off the butt pads in these removable sections, and the cheek pad can rise up and down depending on what you need. So, when it comes to the SP10, most of what we're talking about is on the system, how well it prints, how well it groups, how soft it is to shoot, and how soft it recoils. But there's another thing that we need to talk about, and that's going to be reliability and durability. So during SOCOM testing of these rifles, which is really nice, it's really nice to have SOCOM, NSW, Crane put their money into testing different rifles, because in most cases, they're able to test these rifles to an nth degree that we're not really able to test it to. But these barrels, these guns in particular, take a really long time to start getting past the 1 MOA grouping. The barrel, the way the lockup is, how soft the recoil is, how little wear you see on the parts, all contributes to make for a rifle that can shoot precisely for a very long period of time. Obviously, a 6.5 barrel has less barrel life than a 308. That's just life. But even despite that, there are many reports of these going close to, not double, but about, an extra 5K rounds over traditional barrels that you typically see. So not only are these guns very, very accurate, they also last for a very long period of time. And in addition to that, they're also very reliable. If there's any issues of cycling, you can simply crank over that gas adjustment to power through any type of debris, carbon, all that crap that accumulates in the gun as you shoot a ton. So when it comes to the SP10M, we've kind of hinted at it for a long time, because we've used the SP10Ms as like a benchmark against other precision rifles. But they truly are, in my humble opinion, some of the best DMRs currently on the market. This is due to the ingenuity of the design. This is due to the longevity of the design. And, quite frankly, these guns are made to kill. They're phenomenal. They are phenomenal shooters. They're made for combat, and they are exceptional in every way. And in addition to that, they're not costing that much. I see them typically going for $2,800, $2,900 for SP10. Obviously for the M, for the military model, more. But an SP10 is going to be absolutely fine. And when you compare that to, an SR25, an HK417 or something like that, that's a very reasonable price. Unfortunately, when you get into these large frame ARs that are extremely precise, you're just looking to pay more. But the Seekins, in my opinion, ends up being a very phenomenal system. So we've kind of gotten to the end of what I really need to say about the SP10M, and that is, it's awesome. It's a phenomenal design, and if you're looking for something to head out into the woods and LARP around, man, the SP10 really is amazing. Should things ever go wrong, you need to fight, some tyrannical enemy, well, guaranteed this is going to be a very, very good rifle. So we've done a lot of talking. We're going to go ahead and go through the gun and talk a little bit about the setup. I usually get a lot of questions about that. So I am using a Harris bipod. I just like them for how quick they are to deploy and how quick they are to stow. I do understand there are better bipods out there for precision, and everybody could talk about that, but time and time again, I just love my Harris bipods. On the side, I do have a PEC 15 full power. The reason for this is you need the CNVD LR. So right here, we have a CNVD LR. This is a clip-on night vision device that goes right in front of my optic. And then what it does is provide a very high resolution, high fidelity picture through a very clean white phosphor night vision tube. So if I need a little bit more light on the target, the PEC 15 allows me to do that. Or if you need to point something out to somebody else, those are all helpful things to have. It's always nice to have something to help you fight at night. Now, we do have scrim. The scrim that we have on here is from Relv. It's their little vegetation wraps. I love the way it looks. Relv are also good buddies of ours because we're huge supporters of their mission of providing thermal covers and thermal camouflages for the civilian world. So go and check them out for sure. We have that wrapped at the forend, right around the front of the optic. There are obviously different ways to camouflage your gun. Your experiences may vary. Moving back, we do have kind of two different setups here. So you can see that on our 308 version, same, but different. So the difference is primarily in the optics itself. So on the optic that we have here, we are running a Nightforce ATACR. These are very tough, very robust optics. There are optics I would say are a little bit clearer, but probably nothing that is quite as robust and reliable, which is what I wanted on this kind of go-to-war weapon. Now, on our 308 version, we do have a Tangent Theta on here, which is a phenomenal optic from the guys who made the Elcan Spectre. On the top, we have a Vortex red dot for spotting, kind of seeing where we are with our reticle. So also a really good setup, just a slightly shorter range setup, and that also comes into play with our optic, which is not as much magnification as our Nightforce ATACR. Now, on the caps right here, we have our own products. This is our Sobchak Security Onward Research dope cards, which you can put on the side. We also have a more traditional design right here, just with Right in the Rain paper that we taped on, just to show you different methods of having the dope cards for your gun, just on your gun in some way. In the video, you probably saw me with an armband that also had dope cards, as well as different ways to measure targets. These are all helpful things to have. We're running a Blue Force gear surplusing from the old Navy SEALs. The QD points on these handguards are perfect for long range work, and I have no issues there. Now, on our PEC, obviously activating the PEC all the way out here, not really happening. So we have one of the long extension cords you used to see on those PEC 2s running all the way down to the magwell for activation there. So that is our basic setup. This is a very deadly design. This is a very just awesome design. In every way, I recommend the Seekins SP10 and the SP10M. And I know it's taken us a while to get to it, but we really wanted to take our time on these rifles, and man, I am just impressed. So get out there, get yourself a precision rifle. If you can't afford an SP10M, understandable. If you have something else, you have a PSA and you're like, oh my God, well, you know what? This gun might be a half-minute gun. That might be a 1.2-minute gun, but you might be a 3-minute shooter. Point is, go get training, train with your weapons, actually get out, put rounds through them, be a lot more scared of somebody with a PSA budget build who shoots every day versus somebody with the Seekins where they shoot once a year. So get out there, get training, shoot, that's what's gonna matter. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We got nothing else for you. Final thing for you guys is going to be a little bit of dad advice. Dad advice for today is if your daughter ever hands you a teacup, you are playing tea time. There is no way around it. It is a force of nature. It is a rule of life. Get out there, guys. Thank you so much. We got nothing else for you. Stay safe.